Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the European Masters Road Trip. My name is Rob Ghosty Dreams Price, and I'm very happy to be joined by some lovely gentlemen to bring us through all the action that's happening over in the Benelux. I have my usual co-host that's going to be BP Cast, joining us over from Shanghai. And we've got the illustrious, which is apparently the word that BP Cast wants to use. Koolein, how are you doing today?
I actually have no idea what illustrious means.
Just
Colorful,
amazing,
like
brilliant,
vibrant,
um,
expensive.
no, been doing well. It's getting busy now. We had a few months off a few weeks off in our region, and now the tournaments for the fourth quarter of the year are starting. So lots of things are happening, and including that is the BPL.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks like it's a pretty close one anyway between at least two of the guys that I can see, because there seems to be just two teams that are running away with it at the moment a little bit over there.
Well, they have a very interesting tournament structure.
Glad you
the
brought
moment
it up before I did.
the moment I joined this call, it's like, what the F is happening in the BPL? So we have a thing in the Benelux that is that we have a top three that is always the same. And in our case, it's the Fuse Kids, Sector 1, and Echo Zulu. Echo Zulu and the Fuse Kids have both already played in the EU Masters. And now it looks like there is a bit of a rumble going on. Because of the structure, it gives a lot of pressure to a lot of teams because the elimination bracket gets played offline. But because it is a pretty interesting bracket, people need to go there a lot, which is kind of a thing for some teams.
Yeah, I didn't realize it
So,
got played offline. That's because it's so
Yeah,
much.
I was
action
gonna, I
there,
was
yeah.
gonna say like so like to explain it to the viewers who might not know exactly what we're describing at the moment. I will basically the way they've worked it out is there are 8 teams within the BPL. Please stop me if I do get this incorrect because it is kind of confusing and I'm looking at the structure right now. So there are 8 teams. You were ranked depending on your groups. So you were put into a first or fourth position or in between. And if you got first in your group, you have 4 chances to make it to semifinals. If you were put second, you have 3 chances, and so on and so forth. And they call it a waterfall style system, but to me, this just makes it so incredibly difficult to see anyone outside of the top 4 making it into any kind of semi-final, in my opinion.
Well, the thing we had last split was that if Fuse Kids lost 2 games in the groups and they ended up third in their group. But they at the end won the split, obviously, since they competed in the spring split for U Masters. So it in some way it's like a way to crawl back if you make a mistake. But for now, it's just letting people who came in fourth actually suffer. That's how I feel like, and
Yeah, you cannot lose if you came in fourth in your group. If you came in fourth, you have such a small chance of running the gauntlet. It's effectively like come first, you're pretty much through. Come fourth, you're in a gauntlet. I'm sorry.
yeah, but that means because the thing is these groups were played online, and the elimination stage played offline. And everybody knows people play differently when they're playing online or playing offline. So for some people, that is a bit of a coin flip that they can hit or can miss. But still,
Fair.
it's
That's
weird.
fair.
I still think it's weird as well.
It's a very strange format. It hasn't quite kicked off as of yet. We're kind of only through like the kind of preliminary seeding stage as such. But let's bring it back in terms of the now and looking at the 3 teams, you said, Sector 1, Echo Zulu, and of course the Fuse Kids, who represented the Benelux at the last EU Masters, which you were, of course, with a gracious host at the final. In your own experience, the Benelux, region has been kind of almost a bit of, I won't say a meme, but they've definitely taken themselves less seriously throughout the history of the EU Masters tournament. Where do you see the Benelux region from a fan, someone from the region? Where do you see yourselves in rating within all the other regions?
Well, I mean, we're in a region where we have a lot of talent. Just look at the LEC. There is Febevan who played there. Danan, for example, Kyrie that came in. So there are players that are able to get to that level. I think I can recall 2015 when there was a EU Challenges Series still. There was a full-on Benelux lineup that was there for the final. Kyrie was actually part of that team as well. So I think we have good players, but all the good players go to the Islameisterschaft region or the other regions that actually play very well or have a higher level of gameplay going on. And I think that has always been an issue in the Benelux, especially since we're like 18 to 20 million people in total. So we are a small region. But if you look at the amount of players that are actually at a decent level, I think that is a pretty high percentage overall. So I think the Benelux has the thing, which I already said, is that there are 2, 3 really good teams, and the rest is just like, you know, it. We're happy to be here. That's how it looks sometimes.
Because one of the things kind of Broken Shard touched on was that he thinks that if the European Masters is there and it's kind of like the quote unquote like easier way to get towards the European Masters and then have a spot in European Masters, that he thinks that teams will stick around and players will start sticking to regions where they think they can get an easier shot in towards the European Masters. But it seems to be kind of the opposite effect to the Benelux, where people go, no, I want to play in these upper better regions. So what do you see as the way that maybe people can stop that, talent drain where everyone starts to leave for other areas?
The funny thing is actually this split. Some players have come back. We've seen Forsaken, who's playing support for Sector 1. He used to play in the Greek League. I thought it was We Love Game. I'm not sure which team it was actually, but he played in the Greek League. He played in the EUM, the split before that one with, which is now it is Ad Hoc Gaming, I think. He used to be Mysterious Monkeys, that lineup.
Yeah.
Nightmares is a great example as well. He's playing support for Echo Zulu. He used to play with BIG. He's coming back. I kind of feel like the Benelux region is where the competitive players come when they're like, I don't really want to become a professional player, but I still want to,
It's the retirement home. Yeah.
yeah, it's like a retirement home, maybe in some way. Because the Fuses is a great example as well, because there's Kaz, who played with Copenhagen Wolves,
Yeah.
and then there's Kitty, who's actually won several ESL Meisterschaft titles with Mysterious Monkeys. So yeah, I think we're more of a talent growth pool and a retirement home at the same time.
All right.
Both.
Yeah, because I was kind of looking at like some of the names when I was looking through the rosters that like even Hades and stuff. There were names that I recognized there. I was just kind of like, it seems to be that kind of flux and in and out. But then when I look at like the roster that has gone to European Masters, it's a lot of the same names that I've seen pop up, like Chapapi and stuff like that.
Yeah, Chapapi and Alois came from the Akazula roster that went to EU Masters. They joined the Fuse Kids after, I think it was the winter split. So as of 2019, they joined that roster. And they have had a bit of a struggle. The Diffuse Kids lineup back in the winter split of 2018. They started off with Fury, who's playing with Diabolus now in the UKLC, and Albatraber, who's the jungler for Ekuzulu. They were pretty young players. I think they were 17 or 18, and there is a very Fuse Kids was a very, I don't know how to say it, very experienced lineup with Koss and with Lenny, who both went to Copenhagen Wolves, and again with Kitty, who played in the Isomarsov region, which is a way higher level than the Benelux. So that collided a bit. Then Kadir and Scarlet came in. Scarlet, who's playing for Optic Academy right now, or the Optic main lineup. I'm not too sure yet where he's playing now. And they were subbed in last moment, and there was a lot of drama about that. So the Fuses actually have been in a negative spot, but they kind of worked themselves back up by acquiring Alois and Chapapi to the roster. And now it looks like they have an insane win streak. It's like 27 games or something.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. I think they even have won every single title that is, like, every title that you can win in the Benelux, it's on their name. So they are a pretty strong team, but as of today, and it was actually really weird because like 30 minutes before we had our appointment or something, we say like we go into a chat. Jiggly, their head coach, announced that he is leaving that roster. So I'm really curious what that's gonna be all about at the Fuse Kid side. That's gonna be an interesting one.
Looking historically at the Benelux region and their kind of representation towards EU Masters, they, actually represented in the first EU Masters. They were still working out the kinks, so only kind of like the big regions, quote unquote, and a lot of different Challenger Series teams kind of got in there. It was only in the second season where we saw Echo Zulu come in, and then obviously in the most recent season as well, we've had Diffuse Kids. Would you say that the level of play coming out from these two teams is it worthy is the wrong word, but definitely of par, of the same level of, say, some of the other teams that are in the group stages? Or would you say that you guys are kind of a little bit behind some of the other major regions?
Well, we're definitely behind when it comes to that because let's be fair, it's the third season for the Benelux Premier League. It's a fairly new something. The European Masters is actually fairly new. Like there was no motive for players to come play in the ERLs because yeah, you are the best of the Benelux region, but then again, you're the best of the Benelux region, you know? So it's like, it doesn't really put anything on the line. But now with the addition of that EU Master spot, that's actually something like, hey, you can be seen or you can be shown to the big audience for like, hey, if you're a good player, people will start picking you up and start noticing you. And I think that is the added value that players see. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is right what Broken Chart said. Maybe it's because it's easier in the Benelux to attain that EU Master spot to get spotted that players aren't coming back. But in my way, I like the way I look at it, I feel like it's mostly a financial thing, why people aren't coming back. That's actually funny because I spoke to a guy who was doing PR in the Benelux for a gaming company, and he was like, "Why isn't esports taking off?" I was like, "Yeah, like there needs a big sack of money that needs to be put in." It was like, well, I'm not really sure about that. I think it's more the professionalism, and it got me thinking like, maybe he's right. Maybe we need to be more professional, and maybe we need to start thinking about how we could get fans into the region. Because I don't really notice or really can tell that there are teams that actually have fans. Like the only team that has fans that really struck me were the Brussels Guardians, who played last split of the EU Masters, and have shaken up like a lot in the Benelux since they're from a Walloon region that used to play in the French league. And everyone knows the French league is also a tad higher than the Benelux. Um, so I feel like there's a lot of things missing in the ecosystem for the Benelux. That being fans, that being branding, which is in line with each other, but definitely apart finances that makes it possible for players to play full time because um, it's not possible to live off of League of Legends right now in the Benelux, where it is possible in different regions that have a higher level of League of Legends.
What is, in your mind, in the perfect world, you're given unlimited resources, be it money or facilities, whatever you need, what is the next development for the league for you guys, for the Benelux Premier League, to kind of go from this very much minor league that a lot of the best players just leave because they haven't got the money for it as such? What is the next development to push it towards, like, the UKLCs, the Premier Tours of the European region?
Um, how I look at it, and it's maybe a bit of a biased way of looking at it since I'm like on-screen talent myself, but I feel like if you have a good broadcast, if you have a good product, the rest follows. And what I feel like is that if that product is like pristine, like actually very clean, that there are brands getting involved, and that's how you have a natural growth of getting money in there. So my thing would be to invest that money in having a good tournament and broadcasting and see where that goes, how that follows. If that is able to get a self-sustaining system where brands come in, where you can actually have decent prize pools. Because let's be fair, if you win the Benelux Premier League, I think it was like 2K on top. But the amount of effort that needs to be put in, for example, the Fuse last split, they had to come to that to the offline spot like 4 or 5 times, and one player, for example, lives up into the north, and he's like 2.5 hours one way. So if you just think about it, the amount of time you're putting in there, winning 2,000 euros, which is translating to 400 euro per person, that is a bit of a bummer, to put it like that. And yeah, the EU Masters spot is actually nice because you get a good amount of money there. But then again, the driver is money, which could have been a different way if the structure was put out differently. For example, a single or double elimination instead of a reversed waterfall system. That is a tough question because, I haven't been in their own situation, so I don't really know what their big motivator is.
You just hope that it's national pride, being able to play for your country.
in some sort of way, yeah. In some sort of, I think it's part national pride. It's part being able to call themselves the best of the region. Someone just texted me that Ghost isn't really that good of doesn't really have good sound on the stream or something.
Yeah, I sent him a message. Someone on Twitch chat
Right,
say
yeah.
you need to increase your mic
I'm getting
volume.
spammed. It's
Go
cool.
I did send a message. I was trying to be subtle about it. I just want the world to know.
No, but now I'm getting spammed, and I'm getting spammed on my phone, and it's distracting me. So that's why
having your phone out on an interview, how unbelievably. I'm only joking, but like, again, like I do completely agree with national pride can only take you so far in these particular situations. At the end of the day, like you said, if you have to invest time and effort and a significant portion of your your year effectively to get a couple of €100 maybe, and also get some representation onto for your country, it can sometimes be more to a detriment.
The return of investment for players is not high at all. We've actually calculated like the amount of tournaments, the earnings, the hours you put in, and everything that comes with. It's like €5 an hour or something. You don't need to do it for the money in the Benelux. That's the thing, that's for sure. But I think it's a part of to be seen, and a part of pride. What I feel like is a thing, and to be able to, play on the Riot Games official Twitch page, that's also a thing that comes with the part of pride. But it is a small region, but it's a very close region, and I remember when Echo Zulu played, there was the entire chat spamming Easy Ladder, and the same thing happened with the Fuse Kids, and I think that's an up and downside for the Benelux, because if there is something that happens in terms of drama or anything, everybody knows about it. But when there are things like Masters, you really see that there is a form of pride among the audience, and I think that is what teams feel. Like they can feel the energy.
I think that for specifically for the Benelux, not looking at any other team in particular or anyone in particular, do you think that for any up and coming solo queue player or some kind of mechanical god trying to make their name within the LEC or any league whatsoever, do you think that the EU Masters is a good platform for them? In your opinion, you can be a yes or a no, but do you think that the EU Masters does that job in kind of showcasing them, regardless of wherever they're from around the world?
I mean, the best example for this is Misfits. Like the entire lineup of Misfits that played the EU Master, apart from Kirai, who came from the TCL, it is a good platform. It is a good way to show how it feels to play on that kind of level. Because let's be fair, I think you have EU Masters, and the level above that is the LEC. Correct me if I'm wrong, But that's how I look at the EU Masters. It's like it's like playing the European Championship for under 19. It's like being able to represent your country in a tournament that is being broadcasted by um, the future casters of the LEC. For I think that's a good one. For example, this year there was Ender. You were there. You're doing the LPL right now, so
True. That is true. That is true.
it is a good structure for everyone. Not only for the players but also for the talent that goes in there. I think it is a very good place to test your talent, to work out what you're good at, and it's also a good motivation for people. At least that's what I like to believe. That is a good motivation for people, and especially now, there's a lot of players that played in last EU Master Split who are playing LEC right now. Larson, again, the entire Misfits lineup is a good is there. Sakurai is a very, very good example. I remember, Oshin, that we were telling each other that guy's gonna play in LEC next split. There's no way he's not playing in LEC. And what do you know? He's over there doing his thing.
Actually, we shared a taxi ride from the hotel to the airport with a couple of the SK Prime members, and we were chatting to them, and they were just like, "Yeah, we're sad that Sakurai is going to leave us, but we got to do better towards next split anyway." Just a quick question though that I wanted to show to you. It's something that we see from someone in our chat actually. Wong Support asked, "Would it be better?" Colin, I'm going to put this to you, and then Rob, you can answer as well with your own little thing as well, as our resident expert in all things European. Would it be better for EU if we had an academy league instead of regional leagues, or would it be even better if we had both including? Colin, I'm going to throw that one to you. Do you think EU Masters does a good enough job, or do you think we need an academy league purely for the academy rosters of LEC?
The thing with EU Masters is it's like very limited time. It's like the span from play-ins till final are 20 something days. That is fairly short. Where you have the LCS Academy, for example, which is an entire split, and that truly shows if a team is ready to compete on that level. Like things we see, for example, in LEC as well, is an Excel and a Rogue who joined the LEC as a new brand, as a new team, and absolutely suck at the beginning of the splits. But now you see them like slowly getting it all back together and slowly growing as a team. That I do think that is a better way to have a more of a European league, that you have a European Master that goes over a longer span than just those 20 days.
Yeah,
Stu, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm hoping people can hear me now as well. I think I got that fixed, but yeah, I think it's a little bit hard because if you try and have both, I think you're just taking the talent pool from one or the other. So it's a case of like, okay, cool, we're going to prioritize our academy leagues. Well, now there's very few people who can play in that European league because they're focused full time on the academy league. So I think it kind of has to be one or the other. Um, it's a tough one because I don't know. I love it from a player's perspective because I think you get to show off a lot of talent. And I mean, as you guys were pointing out, the likes of Sakurai and stuff like that, or Click Tech and everything like this. I think if I'm looking at um, if I start looking at teams that are, sorry, I just saw we hear you. Thank you, Wung. But if I start looking at the likes of Click Tech and I look at that team initially, and even when we were kind of discussing that team, we were like, this is a really good team for that region, but how do they fare against the rest of Europe? And like the likes of Milites and stuff like that can look really, really good in their own region, but when you start to hit those upper levels, well, do they really shine? And I don't know how many teams are going to look towards regions like that and go, oh, well, no, these are actually really good players, we're going to go and grab them. And I think European Masters gives you a better way of doing that than I think an Academy League would do. Because I think with Academy, they'll kind of go, okay, well, these are the best regions. They play against the best players, and that's why we're going to pick only from like the Nordics or the Germans or the French and the Spains and all this kind of stuff. Whereas I think there is a lot of talent that goes under the radar just because people probably don't want to look at some of the more far-reaching regions. But when you're forced to put a spotlight on them because of European Masters, I think it just gives them a better stage to show what they're at and what they're capable of. And I think I like European Masters a bit more from that respect, but I do agree with what Colin said, where I think it needs to be a little bit longer. I think it needs a little bit more stage time because I don't think at the moment it really hits the niche that it's trying to.
I feel
Well,
like if you focus on region only, you're gonna have the same thing that they have in Overwatch, for example, that they have the World Cup, and then it's always Korea or China winning.
Yeah.
Like the strongest region, and it's most of the time it's the biggest region because they have a larger pool to choose from. Because it's always France. France has like 35 million people in there. Germany has like 82 million. Like the way
like
they can compose their teams.
it's
They
a
have
much bigger pool.
yeah. So I don't know if it's fair to do that, but what I do like, and that happens a lot in the Benelux region, is that there is a 3 out of 5 rule. I think you have it as well in the Forge of Champions that you have a
Yeah.
residency rule. Yeah, I think if you have something like that, it gets a bit more competitive. And if you have it longer as 20 days, which I already said, I think that it could be a very interesting platform.
Well, I'm going to throw a curveball at you too. All right, I've thought about this because we had Broken Shard talking about the different formats. It's something that's very hotly debated. No matter what region you come from, of course, it is going to be a hotly debated thing. You know, as well, but you can change your opinion. But what do we think about an almost European Super Cup? Where any team, LEC to bronze, can enter it if they like, to where the LEC teams don't join until later on. Maybe even some of the larger regions, like in the the Premier Tour or the French LFL, don't join until later on. You know, maybe a little bit just before the LEC teams, and just have this kind of year-long, massive kind of who is the best in Europe. Would that, in your opinions, be a good or a bad idea? Almost like a Champions League, where like right now there are literally Champions League qualification matches happening, and the season of football hasn't even started.
Very realistically, looking at what happened at Rift Rivals, I think teams will be fed up with playing League because I love the fact that there's a lot of League of Legends, but if I think about the players, they're playing year round. There is no time off, and that like they're still humans, you know. They need their breaks. And I think what will happen is something that we saw at Rift Rivals is that they're just like, we're here to play, but just to get out as soon as possible. And I don't think it's a good idea to add the LEC teams, but I think it might be an interesting one for the regions. But yeah, let's be fair. I think the European Masters may be a Champions League for the ERLs. I think it's already like that. And I think adding the LEC teams will just be a big demotivator for smaller regions as the Benelux, as the Balkan, that kind of regions.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think having the European Masters there and making sure that certain regions get their spot, I think helps them to a certain extent. Um, Now again, what the format should be when it comes to it, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to try and figure that out. But I think, yeah, I agree with Colin. I think you kind of the European Masters is kind of a Champions League in that respect, and I think if you do start forcing players to try and play at all points in time throughout the year, they just go, "Ah, no, I'm not bothered this time," you know. And then I think you'll have a lot more people just burn out and drop out.
It's fair. I
This is
accept those
already
criticisms.
this is actually something that was already happening in the Benelux, where there's like because of the fact that the EU Masters are going to be around late September, meaning that it starts play-ins early September.
Yeah, 9th of
The
September, I think.
finals are being played on I think even the 1st of September. So that meaning that the entire tournament is being played during holidays. So where people are going out of the country, spend some time with friends and family. Um, there is a team, New Dynasty in the Benelux, who just chose to not even compete anymore, just because there were holidays and they felt like, we're not even gonna make that EU Master spot, so why do we even bother? And I think that is a bit of a toxic way because in that way you don't get to put out your brand like that. Like aside of the fact that you're able to play for EU Masters, you also have an extra moment to show your team, to show your brand, to show who you are. And as I already mentioned, like I feel there are no fans in the Benelux, and that's I think 60% because of the teams not putting in effort to grow a fan base. And I think that is missing out as well in the Benelux right now.
Pulling back in as well, back onto the Benelux. Unless Rob, you have anything to add to this particular topic.
The only thing I wanted to touch on was what Wung said in chat there, which was, don't we just need to spend more time and resources in mental coaching, since every athlete kind of has these problems? I think the personal difference for me between someone who plays football and someone who plays like League of Legends or any sort of esports is that, like, a football player will go out to train for 2 to 3 hours a day and they're just kind of physically done. Like, you cannot do any more before you start doing injuries and everything else that kind of comes with those areas. Whereas, I mean, if you turn around and said, "Oh yeah, League of Legends players plays for 3 games a day, so 3 hours," you'd be like, "How? Like, there's no way you're gonna stay up to the skill you're supposed to." So I think when you're looking at it, it's a little bit different in that respect. Where I think there's a lot more time that goes into esports in a longer term. And now, of course, or at least playing the game physically over and over and over. Whereas I think when you play like the likes of football or basketball, you just physically can't play that much. So I don't think you get sick of it as fast. But maybe that's just from a naivety point of view, because I'm obviously not the biggest sports dude in the world, so I'm not sure on that respect.
Agree. I think right now, just to kind of put a a cap on this particular subject, is I think right now League of Legends is still trying to separate itself as being a job where you work for it, and it is you go to a specific place to it, and a personal hobby, an escape, something that people use for fun. And I think people kind of have a very difficult time differentiating the two, because we see obviously reports of Korean players playing for 12 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. They don't take time off. They go straight to boot camps. And, when realistically you look at the likes of football players or anything like that, or rugby players or basketball players, they do have holidays. They do have interests and stuff outside of the game. I still think that, esports in general is kind of maturing to the sense of that, it's like when Cloud9 said they were playing, World of Warcraft during the Worlds campaign, and everyone was like, "Oh, you can't play other games? How dare you?" Like, we need to be able to differentiate our jobs from our hobbies. And I do think that that's something that most esports hasn't quite found the balance with yet.
I'd like to add something to this, because when you were talking about this, I was thinking, like, there are esports that actually have cracked the code when it comes to that, and it is the fact that League of Legends has like privatized their way of doing tournaments. Counter-Strike is a great example for that, where you can play on a certain level. So you have like an intermediate level and there's an advanced level, and that's how teams work themselves up. Whereas the thing is, like, if you win the BPL, you get thrown for the Lions, Mad Lions, like, but you get thrown into a big pool of very, very good players who are used to playing on a high level. Because let's be fair, the Superliga Orange from Spain, there are some very good teams in there. There are a lot of international players that grow towards that LAC. Isa Marsha, same example. UKLC, we have Excel Fnatic right now. Those are teams that are ready to make that next step. And I don't feel like other regions can keep up with that. If there is a region like Spain, like Germany, like the UK, who've already been in that process for 5, 6, maybe 10 years already. So I think there's a lot of catching up to do for a lot of regions.
But then bringing it kind of back to back to the Benelux then. There are kind of the teams that we were talking about, those top 3 teams. And looking at those ones then, who do you feel is the most ready to kind of start kicking it with the big boys out of the 3 that are there?
If I have to be really honest, from results that have happened in the past already, I'm not too sure if there is any team ready yet, because they are not able to invest the amount of time that is needed to get up to the level. Because if you want to get up to the level, you need to play 8 to 10 hours a day as a team. As you need to put that time into solo queue, which is not possible, because once again, this flows back to the finance thing, is that people are not getting paid enough or not being able to go into gaming houses, that kind of stuff, to get to that level where they can definitely compete for a European Masters title. Because all the teams that have won European Masters so far are teams that are playing on a pro level or a slightly level under it. And they are able to put in the amount of time that is needed to get that result as a European Masters title winner. So I don't feel like there is any team ready yet. But if I had to choose one, I would still go for the Fuse Kids in this case, just because they are a very dominant team right now in the Benelux, and I don't see anyone else apart from Echo Zulu who have made some changes in their roster. With Goose, who played at the EU Masters, the split before under PZ. He went to the Greek League, came back. And Albatrebu who is a very talented jungler. Still a bit young though, but I feel like he could bring some. He could make it a bit harder for the Fuse Kids. So I wonder if they're able to bring something in. But for now, I'm still gonna go for the Fuse Kids.
Along those same lines of, looking at, are there anyone to kind of kick it with the big boys, anyone to kind of, bring pride to the Benelux region of 3 countries, what is progress in your eyes for a Benelux team? What is a successful campaign for you guys coming into 2019 summer?
Can you rephrase the question a bit? It's like,
so if you were to put if you were to decide whether or not the team, whichever team it is that makes it to EU Masters this particular split, if you were to decide whether or not their campaign was a success or a failure, what does success, like, what does it look like? What is a success for this team? Is it winning a game? Is it going to quarterfinals?
Getting out of groups.
Kind of stuff.
Getting out of groups is the first thing, because both teams, being Echo Zulu and the Fuse Kids, have both gone on a 1-2 record where they won 1 game and lost 2 of them. And I think just getting out of groups would be a huge victory for everyone already, because it would show that we are growing in level. I think it is a too far-fetched dream to already be looking at going to that final, because we're so not ready for that one. Absolutely not. So getting out of groups is a small and humble goal to work for, but I think it is a huge step for the region itself.
Do you think that it's possible for the Benelux region to?
Well, I mean, less RNG to have the right group, You have
the seeding now, so it's not as RNG'd. You don't get the group of life that we had last time. So there is an element of control over it. But do you think that it would?
What would the group be? What would the group be for the Benelux? Do you know that?
Let's have a think. So if we are looking at I'm going to open up the actual article they put out to see the actual seedings. So potentially you could have, and I'll give you an easy one. You could have number 1. You could have number 2, and then you'd have a Baltics as a number 3 seed, and then a play-ins team for number 4. So let's say the number 4 team is the 2nd seed from Spain. So you've got Baltics, UK number 1, and Spain in there. Is it possible to take 2 games in that group?
I mean, everything's possible, Let's be fair, but statistically looking, I think it would be a hard thing to do, because you have UK who are a pretty mature seed, and let's be fair, it's either going to be Fnatic or Excel who are going to be the one representing that region. Spain is the same thing. They have very strong teams, a very high level of League of Legends coming out of there. And then it's already done, because you need to be in that top 2 spot to get out of that group. And if you already lose 2 of these games, that's a pretty tough thing to do. So if it would be like that, I don't think it would be a very realistic thing. But I think it would be possible as well, because let's be fair, the Mad Lions didn't look too good this year or last split. And I kind of felt like there was a possibility there. But for now, no, I don't think that would be a thing, just going out of just looking at statistics.
Do you think that maybe, obviously looking back in terms of what you would consider a successful campaign for whatever team that makes it, do you think maybe putting up a fight, and that sounds horrible, but even in your losses, do you think that's like a step forward for this team to not be a pushover, to be a team that people kind of have to take seriously? Is that also a successful campaign in your eyes?
Well, yeah, it's actually funny you start with, because I was talking to Dos the other day. I was like, so, what do you think about the Benelux ERL? And he said, Benelux question mark? You mean the meme league? And I was like, oh, that's painful. That is a painful thing. But putting up a fight, showing that you are able to give in resistance, yeah, I think that definitely will not go unnoticed. And I think there is a small growth, because it is the third time that European Masters come, like fourth, third. I don't know
The
how many.
fourth one coming up.
It's a fourth one, so it is still a very young something. So a lot of audience that watches the European Masters have never heard of 80% of the teams that are competing. So I think this is something that has to go over time. And when we're at the 10th edition, and the Fuse Kids or Echo Zulu or any other team from the magazine has constantly made it out of that groups and start showing up, I think that is the way to go to get a little bit of respect, and have DOS, for example, say, "Oh yeah, Benelux region, good region, dude." I think that it just takes time.
How kind of on that, how soon do you think it is? Like, do you think you need, is it like new coaching staff to come in? Do you think the current players could do it if they were to get the right help? Or do you think, like, for a region that has produced such talent, are you kind of waiting on the fresh blood to come in to maybe stick around, and then that becomes the region that could do it? Or do you think, some of the players that are there, do you think if given the right help, could they be the ones to succeed?
Well, currently what we're seeing in the Benelux is that there is a shift, like the new generation of the players are coming in. So you have a fairly young pool that are joining more experienced lineups, such as Echo Zulu, such as Sector 1. We have Pascal in the top lane, who's 17 or 18. I'm not too sure yet. But they are showing up. They are coming in, and they need a bit of time, because Alois is a very good example as well. Alois was 16 or 17 when he was ranked 40 or something on the server. He just like spam Riven, and then he starts playing competitive, and that was something else for him. So he still needs to grow, and there are a lot of players that need growth, and we need to see what is going to happen. But yeah, I think professionalizing once again the broadcast, every single thing. It's a stakeholder thing, because I've touched upon this before, and it is the ecosystem that needs to grow, and that cannot be done by one stakeholder. That needs to be done by multiple. So it's tournament organizers, it's production companies when it comes to esports, it's the teams themselves. It is, I don't know, maybe the government needs to chip in. That might be a bit extreme. But yeah, everyone needs to have the same mission, and that has to have a growth for the entire scene, and not just for themselves. And I think that is what we need to have a good region, to have a region that starts growing, and I don't know, maybe knock off an ESL Meisterschaft regions as being a meme league. I mean,
what you're saying to me here is we need
the Germans have been defeated once.
Team. We need a Benelux super team, is what you've just said to me. We all need to come together and create a team that can just win out of groups.
No, but
then we're happy.
No, not just a team, but also we need higher quality tournaments, a higher quality broadcast, and a higher quality of brands coming in, external brands like I don't know, Nike, Adidas, you name it, that kind of stuff. It's not one thing; it's all the things that need to grow.
You specifically mentioned ESL Meisterschaft there. Is there like a bit of rivalry between the Benelux and the DACH region, or?
No. I just really admire the ESL Meister region, because it is a very good region. I like it because they have a really good way of putting brands in there, because I study marketing as well, so I look at it from that perspective. I look at it from that perspective too. Yeah, they have the luxury of having an ESL office in their country, and the Benelux region has had one, I think, now for 2.5 years. So yeah, it's all a matter of time, which is the message I've been repeating over and over.
It is, and I think, it's you've obviously you've obviously looked into it a little bit, maybe not at length, but definitely a little bit to kind of come to the conclusion of like, well, we need all these things, and unfortunately, they're just not able to kind of, get them all at the same time. It's going to be a slow, arduous process, and like you said, the first step is creating a brand, creating like you talked about the fans, you talked about the branding. It's getting a team that people can get behind and no longer being a meme team. And it's a nice little segue to my next topic of, which I totally didn't set up 100%, is in your eyes, less looking at towards EU Masters, looking towards like the league and how it's functioning as as we come full circle. What is, or what would you like to see implemented for the Benelux region? Do you want to see more tournaments? Do you want to see a slightly less convoluted tournament? Do you want to see, what do you want to see within your own region immediately that can happen very, very soon in order to try and improve the scene?
Contracts. Teams need contracts.
He plays an NA, man. I don't think you can get him.
Not that kind of contract. No, actually, I know there are a lot of teams who just play in teams because of the willingness of people and not because they have an agreement with them. And that makes it very hard to develop brands, because to develop brands, you need to have a team that sticks together for a while. And the thing is, and it's fun for me as a caster, as a host, to see the teams change a lot, but it's actually wrecking the scene. It's so not good to have different players every split under a different shirt. So what we see is we call it the Benelux switcheroo that happens every single time a split is over. Teams switch out and swap out players like it's nothing. And I think that is the first step. Get a contract. Make sure that your players are going to be with you for at least a year to be able to work up that brand. Because if you have a different person all the time doing stuff, that is not going to work at all. I think that is the first step, getting contracts and professionalizing the scene in terms of organizations. If that makes sense.
No, that sounds good. I think that helps out a lot. And it's like, I understand where you're coming from, and obviously my own experiences in the Irish scene is we get the exact same stuff. Whereas the second, not even like a season, it's like at tournament ends, it's just like, cool, everyone like up from your seats, shift one to the left, and that's your new team now. We'll run with it in that way.
Literally like a change places. Someone just screams out, just like, change places! And everyone's just like, oh shit, gotta run. Gotta find a good team. But
scramble for seats, and Bush ends up in Japan somehow. We're not sure how that would happen. But
how did you end up in Masters Japan? What the hell?
No, but I'd like to add something, by the way. It's not only contracts, it's also people need to have the willingness to grow a team. Because a lot of people expect, if I get the best players in my team, we'll sure as hell win a tournament with ease. And they do not think about synergies or like, hey, actually that guy is some sort of a dick outside of the game. So people need to be able to work on a personal level as well. And I know that is a hard thing because we're all nerds and we're all gamers and we don't really have social skills. But playing in a League of Legends team, for example, or any other esports team is more than just being skillful at the game. It's also willing to adapt yourself to work within a team.
Do you think that's more down to the management of the team to create that environment than it is for the players to kind of make it happen?
Yes and no. You do need a management to spot those things out very, very quickly. But the open-mindedness, that is something that needs to come from the players and that needs to be put in, because I hear a lot of stories and most all of them are like, oh yeah, I hate playing with this guy because he doesn't put enough effort for that. Oh, I hate playing with this guy because he makes this weird noise during the game. Oh, I hate playing with this guy because he's always exaggerating and then crying. And I hate this guy because his name is Koolein. Like, those are all these kind of things that I think like, not necessary. Accept things from each other, because all in all, nobody is perfect when it comes to that. And if you want to work on becoming the best, you need to work on functioning as a team at first to be able to go for that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of need a lot of help, and as you said, it's the ecosystem as a whole that has to pick itself up. There's so many stakeholders that come into these things that if even one part starts to fall apart, like not saying it is the organizations, say it's the organizations that don't really have the drive, and yeah, we got the team there because the team's there, and we don't really do very much with this. I mean, that's not going to help out if the players aren't committed to actually trying to improve and practice and all that kind of stuff. The whole thing falls apart as well. So I think if you've got a scene where, and I think having an option for the European Masters definitely will help out massively because I think it gives stakeholders something to eyeball and work towards. Um, but it's just a case of actually trying to now align all your pieces, and it's good that the Benelux kind of the scene as a whole. I think it sounds like at least is starting to realize that and starting to work towards it. And
Hmm.
hopefully we will see. Maybe it won't be the next 2 to 3 years, but at least maybe and few iterations down the road, everything in the Benelux has started to come together, and we can really see that this competition has grown Europe as a whole.
I think something that could add as well is that we do the groups in sort of a location somewhere where we get the people to be shown on the stream as well, aside just from their names, but actually get faces paired with them. When it gets added value for the organizations because they have sponsors on their shirts that they can show that they can sell, um, and also it's like it's something extra. It's not like I'm playing in my attic playing League against someone who is 10 times better as me because his name is Leader. You know, like I think it needs to be a more prestigious because now it just feels like an online tournament for a lot of regions because they don't get out of the groups. Where I think it would be really cool if you had something like the LPL does it, where you have like your own arena.
Yep.
What if we get like what if we just go back where the tournament is being played, set up the players there, have an audience with them, and see them play and actually cheer for them and actually have added value for not only the organization but also the fans, also the production. Like everyone gets involved, and now it's just the teams playing. And as much as you hate it, you just see them lose. There's no event going on.
All right. Well, I'm happy enough. I have a two-part question, and then Rob can ask you whatever questions he likes. This is always what we do now at the end of the show. I got two-part question for you. Who's representing the Benelux at EU Masters 2019 summer, and are they going to make it out of groups?
It's got either going to be Diffuses or Echo Zulu, and I can't really tell who it is. But
Need a name.
my gut feeling is still going for Diffuses just because they have had a dominant performance. They have had a boot camp in Spain, where they are returning from today. I think it was even in the head office from Existence. So I think they even got to talk to the guys a lot there as well.
Everyone,
and
clip it. Make sure you have the later. Thank you.
I hope to see them like make that growth, which I think is going to be a tough one now that their coach has left them as well. I think that's going to be a huge impact for them. I don't hope it's going to be too much of an impact because it would be a very sad song to be sung to see that happening. Um, will they make it out of groups? I can't really tell. I need to see them play now. They had their boot camp, but for the
Yes
sake of
or
it,
no?
I hope
Yes or
so
no?
because I'm an optimistic guy. They will make it out of groups just because I'm optimistic.
There it is. That's the answer I wanted. All right, I'm happy. Rob, it's all yours. You do what you do.
If it is the Fuse kids or whoever it is that makes it out, who's your player to watch? Who's the one or two guys that you go, yes, I'm casting or I'm hosting or whatever. I'm involved with this dude today. I can't wait to see what he brings out.
Huge factor for them is Hades. Hades is a high challenger jungler who has been playing in regions like the UK. I think he even has played in the Balkan for a bit. Hades does a lot for the team. He enables his teams. He enables himself sometimes. And every time he locks in Lee Sin, small tingly things happen in my stomach. And I really like seeing him play that Lee Sin. And I really hope that because the thing is, like, people call him the land choker, which he hasn't been doing that much lately. But I do hope that he steps up and shows his worth for the team and helps them get out of group.
Well, If you have no more questions, Oshin, thank you very much, Colin, for joining us. It was awesome to have you on, and thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge in the Benelux. And I feel like definitely now I've got a better idea of who I should be watching out for, and I definitely have to keep an eye on Hades. If I'm sad now because we were talking about it, we don't get to see your elimination groups, but I want to see what they can do at least when they do get to towards those final stages of the competition. So thank you very much for joining us. But that was all for today's podcast of European Masters Road Trip. We'll be back on Thursday, where we'll be taking care of the Ultraliga coming out over from Poland. We'll have one of the casters on from that region. So please make sure you are joining us as well. But that's going to be everything from tonight, and we hope you had a great time, and we'll catch you guys later.